This isn't about a childhood that looked broken. Your home may have had meals on the table, holidays, even laughter, and still left something quietly unfed. Emotional neglect doesn't announce itself. It doesn't arrive as a single wound you can name. It arrives in accumulation, in the moments you spoke and the room stayed indifferent, in the moments you felt something deeply and no one noticed. Over time, your brain did what brains do. It made meaning. Not trauma, not a story of what happened to you. It cataloged them as truth about who you are. And from that truth, it builds behaviors. Behaviors so ordinary, so quietly woven into your daily life that you'd never think to question them. Your parents may have been good people, responsible, even loving in the ways they knew how. This isn't about assigning blame or rewriting your history into something darker than it was. Emotional neglect, in its quietest form, isn't about cruelty. It's about absence. Not the absence of food, shelter, or provision. The absence of curiosity about your inner world. You were cared for, but not inquired after. Your feelings were present. They simply weren't invited into the room. And when that happens consistently enough, a child doesn't arrive at the conclusion that their parents fell short. They arrive at something far more personal, that their emotions are the problem. That belief doesn't stay in childhood. It follows you, wearing the disguise of perfectly normal habits. There's a version of you that everyone finds charming. The one who makes a joke the moment things get heavy, who waves off their own pain before anyone else has the chance to acknowledge it. You're not dramatic. You're easy, and people love you for it. But that ease was learned somewhere, in a home where emotional expression met not cruelty, but indifference, where your hurt was met with silence or subject changes. Humor became the only container that felt safe. It held what nothing else would. The problem is that you've been doing it so long, you've turned it inward. Now, even alone, you can't take your own suffering seriously. You minimize before you've even finished feeling. You've become so rehearsed at being the punchline that you've forgotten you're also allowed to be the person who hurts. Productivity looks like a virtue from the outside. You finish what you start. You rest only after everything is done, and there's always something left to do. But watch what happens when you try to simply stop. When there's nothing due, nothing urgent, nothing to justify the stillness. Something in you resists it. Not laziness, discomfort. Because somewhere in your formation, rest wasn't neutral. Warmth arrived when you were useful. Attention came when you were performing, achieving, contributing. You learned, quietly and completely, that your right to peace was conditional, that existing without output was a kind of trespassing. So now, doing nothing feels like a moral failure. Relaxation isn't relief. It's a debt your nervous system is convinced you haven't earned the right to stop paying yet. People read you as thoughtful, careful with your words, someone who considers how things land before they speak. And in a narrow sense, that's true. But sit with what's actually happening when you lie awake mentally scripting a conversation you haven't had yet, running every possible reaction, softening every edge, pre-apologizing for needs you haven't even voiced. That isn't consideration. It's a survival pattern wearing consideration's clothes. Because when you grew up emotionally unseen, expressing a need often ended badly. Not in violence, but in dismissal, in being made to feel like too much. So you learned to edit before you spoke, to shrink the ask before it left your mouth. The rehearsal was never about communication. It was about calculating how to exist in a room without making anyone uncomfortable enough to leave. Most people assume discomfort with compliments is modesty. It isn't. Watch closely and you'll notice it's something more visceral, a flinch, a deflection,
an almost allergic response to being seen warmly and without condition. Here's what likely happened. In your environment, kindness wasn't a constant. It arrived unpredictably, and often, not always, but often enough, it preceded withdrawal. Warmth came before distance. Softness came before silence. Your nervous system, which is far smarter than any thought you've ever had, cataloged that pattern with precision. It learned that unexpected care is not a gift. It's a variable, a precursor, something to be assessed, not received. So now, when someone is purely, simply kind to you, your first instinct isn't gratitude. It's a quiet, exhausting question. What comes next?
This one is quieter than the others. From the outside, it reads as humility. You don't make a fuss, you don't broadcast your wins, you stay measured even when life is genuinely good. But there's something else happening beneath the modesty. When things go well, something in you contracts. You pull back from the people closest to you. You delay the celebration, minimize the milestone, or, without fully realizing it, begin doing the small things that unravel the good before it can be taken from you. Because somewhere in your formation, good moments couldn't be trusted. They arrived without warning and left the same way. Joy was a season without a guaranteed length, and your nervous system learned the only rational response. Don't fully unpack. Don't settle in. Stay close to the exit. So you became an expert at half living, present enough to function, engaged enough to appear fine, but never fully inside your own life. Never fully letting the good thing be yours. And the tragedy isn't the self-sabotage itself. It's that you've been protecting yourself with extraordinary discipline and tremendous cost from a danger that no longer exists.
None of these habits arrived by accident. Every single one of them was an intelligent response to a real environment, a quiet, precise adaptation built by a child who needed to survive a space that didn't have room for their full emotional reality. They made sense then. They were even wise then. But you are not that child anymore, and the environment has changed. And yet the adaptations remain, running the same calculations on a world that no longer requires them. Taken together, what they have built is a life that functions extraordinarily well from the outside and is almost entirely unfelt from within. You move through your days, you meet your obligations, you show up. And somewhere behind all of it, you are deeply, quietly alone inside your own experience. Because you grew up believing your inner world was not worth responding to, so you stopped offering it. And the question that remains, the one worth sitting with, is this: what would it mean to live as someone whose inner world matters?